Welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Hey there, welcome to episode 109 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you as always for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices out there and I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of them. If you're a first time listener, then hey, super welcome to you, or welcome back. I am, of course, Jen, the host, marketing thought leader, digital strategist, and coach for small businesses, and pretty much just an all-round small business lover. And I have one goal in my business, and that is to make every small business I come across make them make marketing a priority in their business. Because I know if you want to grow, then you need to learn to market what you do better than any of your competitors. But today, I actually have a guest on the podcast. His name is Neil Butler, and his business is Untypical, and he's joining me for a chat about his words of wisdom. It's been a little while since I've had a male guest, for no other reason than it's just been a little while since I've had a male guest, so I'm super excited for you to hear from Neil. Before we get started with Neil, I just wanted to say that this is your last chance to get into my 6-week email mastermind class, because we start early next week, which is in early February if you're listening to this in real time. If email marketing has been on your to-do list for 2021, or it's been there for a long time, then check out this program. There's really nothing like it on the marketplace, where I take you through the email marketing process in just 6 weeks. Hold your hand, give you a group of other small business owners to bounce ideas off and collaborate with, and it's just an amazing little program. It's not a buy and then go away and do it. It's me and you and the rest of the gang, helping you with the tech and how to write good copy and why you need to do email marketing and how to build a list and all of that, including, of course, your sales funnels. If you're interested, then head to bit.ly/email mastermind and put in your expression of interest, and we'll have a chat and we'll see if the program's suitable for you. All right, but let's get into it, because Neil is a great guy who I really want you to hear from today. He's actually one of my COVID friends. I have a few COVID friends, people who I didn't know, except, we got to know each other a little bit through COVID. We met through a mutual friend, Jules, who has the business Handle Your Own PR. And I was actually a guest on his podcast, which is named the WOW podcast, so WAW, which of course has the meaning of words of wisdom. So I thought I'd steal his format of his podcast and do it here for you today. Share some words of wisdom. Given that it's a new year, we might just need a nudge in the right direction. And really, that's all inspirational sayings are, or words of wisdom are. They're a nudge. They're probably things that you've already know, things that you have definitely heard before. And most certainly you will have heard most of what we chat about today. But it's that nudge to push you in the right direction, or to give you that little bit of inspiration to go, yep, okay, now I can do it. Now I want to do it. That is what words of wisdom is all about. So I can't wait for you to hear Neil's words of wisdom. I think there's supposed to be 5, but I think there ends up to be quite a few as the conversation goes on. It's a great episode. Really look forward to sharing it with you. All right, here we go. Neil, I am super excited to have you on the podcast today. So thank you so much for joining me.
I don't think you're as excited as I am, Jen. It's a great pleasure to be here on this very fine podcast.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, Neil, I know you. We have got to know each other really quite well during 2020, being a great collaborative connection from our friend Jules Brooks. But from
Hello, Jules.
Shout out to Jules. For people who don't know Neil Butler, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Neil Butler. I'm based in the beautiful city of Geelong, the city by the bay, and I run a business called Untypical. And I guess there's two major thrusts to that. One is around transformation and change, and the other one is around media. And I do a bit of community radio, I do a bit of online radio, and I do a fair bit of podcasting, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, fair bit of podcasting. And it was on one of your podcasts called Wow Podcast that we actually got to meet for the first time. So what's Wow Podcast? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, WowPod came about because I reckon everyone's got something that they know that's wise. And so I went with Words of Wisdom podcast. And then I thought, hang on, Words of Wisdom, that's W-O-W, wow. And apart from everyone thinking it's something to do with some television program or something called War of Worlds or a video game or something, it's not that. It's Words of Wisdom. So people like you, clever people who have learned things along the way, come and share them with me. So, and then we chat about them.
Yeah. And I thought I was quite privileged to think that you had thought that I had any words of wisdom to tell your audience. But I think from memory, it was about episode 16 of the Wow pod. But something you're like getting up towards 100 now.
I am getting up towards 100 as we record this in mid-January. I've got about half a dozen to go, and episode 100 features my favourite person in the whole world.
Which will be Neil Butler, no doubt.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I've got to say it. No one else is saying it about me. So, yeah, so I'm going to be interviewed by somebody else for my own 100th episode.
That sounds brilliant. So we're kind of on the podcast today, we're just going to kind of steal your format a little bit because,
why not?
You know, I have been on your podcast talking about words of wisdom, but I wanted you to come on for my podcast and maybe share some of your words of wisdom. Now, this might be cutting into episode 100 of yours, so you might have to come up with 10 words of wisdom rather than just 5. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to have a bit of a chat to you about because, you know, Untypical, you do a lot of podcasting. We have met also through your radio that you do a fair bit of radio. So I am convinced you have a lot of words of wisdom to share with us.
Well, as long as you're convinced, I've convinced somebody. In fact, I'm having a look at the list of things, the 5 statements of wisdom I've got for you today, and they do cross over with the 5 word sets of wisdom, but not exclusively. So you're not stealing all my thunder, just 1 or 2 of them.
Darn, I was hoping to do that. All right. Okay, so let's start with the first words of wisdom that Neil Butler has for us on the podcast today.
Well, I'm going to run with have a crack. It's a great expression. It's a great expression, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very Aussie, isn't it? Have a crack.
Yeah, I've had a few people who, I spoke to someone in Ireland one day who thought I was saying have a crack as in C-R-A-I-C, as in have lots of fun, which that's it as well. But it is very Aussie. And I think too many people sitting around going, but what if I do it and it doesn't work? And I tend to work on the basis of what if you do and it does. But it's really encouraging people to say, well, the worst thing that's going to happen is it's not going to work out the way you thought it would, you know, so have a crack. I mean, you know, something I think my grandmother used to say, what have you got to lose except your smoker's cough, which I've never made any sense to me, but given I don't smoke. But yeah, it's about taking a risk, I guess. And there'll be people who have got things sitting in the back of their mind and go, you know, one day when the kids grow up, or if only I had of, or, you know, you're a long time dead, and it just would be sad to get to the other end of it and say, oh, if only I had. Do it now. Have a crack.
Yeah, and that's really great advice, I guess. At the start of the year, we all tend to, or a majority of us will start the year going, you know, I've got some big goals. This is what I want to achieve. At 10 January is very much a goal setting time. So great little, I guess, push. For me, I guess I say ready, fire, aim. So the world doesn't need someone else aiming to do something. Just get out there and do it. And if it fails, what's the worst possible thing that could happen to you? Yeah.
And there's an element of philosophy about it, but there's also an element of pragmatism. And, you know, most of the projects that people are talking about are, you know, more often than not in our world, it's about, I think I might start my own small business.
Yeah.
Or I might go and instead of just working from home, I might go and, you know, lease an office or lease some co-working space or something. Well, the worst thing is you're stuck with it for 3 or 6 months. Right. And if you're fortunate enough to have someone else in your family who is bringing in some income, that's even better, because you then don't have to worry about what if, you know, all my debts, well, okay, you mightn't be able to go on your holiday at the end of the year, but at least have a crack.
Yeah. What's a time in your life where you've used that particular analogy where you've just had a crack?
I do it on a monotonously boring regular basis. I'm a great 3 o'clock thinker. 3 a.m. I do some of my best work at 3 in the morning, and I wake up and I go, hey, that's an idea. I'll have a crack. So I guess the most profound have a crack was when I walked away from having a real job. And so I was a school teacher 150 years ago, and I thought, no, I'm going to get out of this for 6 months and see how things go. And that was pretty profound. And that happened in 1989. So it's a long 6 months. And then I've also then, when I was retrenched at one stage, it's a little bit of money in the bank. Now's the time to try fiddling around with starting my own business. So I think more recently, things like my online radio station, rebranding my business, those sorts of things, you have a crack at it. And if it doesn't work, well, at the end of the day, I'm going to get to the other end and go, well, it wasn't for the want of trying.
Yeah.
Might be the want of crying, but not trying.
For me, I think the biggest one that stands out for me was when I left law and went into retail. So when my best friend and I decided we just wanted to leave our corporate jobs and be our own bosses. And I have to say that even though we had a crack and we did it, I kept my law job for 3 days a week, just in case for the first 12 months. So even though I had a crack, I had a contingency plan, which of course I didn't need. And I went all boots and all, but sometimes you can have a crack, but sometimes you still can have that contingency plan behind you as well if you're just not quite game enough to jump boots and all. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not. And I didn't say have a massive crack. I mean, just have a crack. And I mean, okay, if you're a parachutist, you can't really sort of dangle out of the side of the airplane and hang around for 10 minutes before you decide to drop. But, you have to, your boots and all, but not everything is jumping out of an airplane. It might be, I know a lot of people who side hustle. There's an expression I dislike with a passion because it's one of those things, it's my side hustle. No, it's actually your other activity. And a lot of people start off as a hobby, then they go, you know what, I might drop back 1 day a week or 2 days a week and do this thing. And that's fine. Just don't say, I'll do it next. Don't be a gunner.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it.
Gonna do it. Gonna. All right. What's your second pearl of wisdom to share with us?
Or now they're stepping up their pearls of wisdom now. If you are starting a small business, make it something that you're passionate about.
Yeah. I would 100% agree with that because the going gets tough. If there's not passion, then it's awfully hard to get out of bed in the morning to do it.
Absolutely. Billy Ocean had a song, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And I had a friend who thought that the words were, when you can go and get stuffed, the tough get going. Which I had to point out to them, no, that's actually not the correct words. Yeah, absolutely right. And I think people start businesses for various reasons. Now, some people do it because they don't want to go back into the corporate world. Gee, I wish I'd never heard of that. You and I have never done that. But there are other people who do it because they find themselves in a situation where, for whatever reason, they have to start their own business to buy themselves a job. Other people do it because if they don't, they'll go nuts. That middle group, often you'll find people go and buy franchise because it's already set up for them. They just go and basically join the dots and they've got their own business. But if you go and buy yourself a carpet store, and, I'm not having to go at people buying carpet stores, just one that came to my mind, and you hate selling carpet, well, why do it to yourself? I mean, you've got to be doing something that you love. Yeah. And as people listening to this episode and anything else I do will work out pretty quickly, I don't mind a chat. And if someone sticks a microphone in front of my mouth, I'll start talking. Everyone's entitled to my opinion. And that's something I'm passionate about. And therefore, in the last, here's a word that we've never heard in the year 2020, in these unprecedented times, I decided to pivot last year and move further away from going in and telling people how to do change and transformation and more towards doing what we're doing now. And I'm loving it. I get out of bed much happier, not earning anywhere near the amount of money I was, but having fun because I'm passionate about it. And that's really what it all comes down to.
Yeah. And there was certainly, within 2019 and 2020, within my business model, especially Buy From a Bush business, there was a lot of people that could knit or could sew or could bake or could do something crafty that had to start a business through necessity because of drought, bushfire, flood, COVID, because the other income, and I guess I'm referring mostly to farmers, especially in 2018, 2019, there wasn't any. So they've had to turn their passion project into an actual business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a passion for the thing you're doing. I mean, you described you and your mate setting up a shop. Now, I don't know whether the shop was something you really loved or just the fact you were working with your mate, not even going to a corporate job. And that's fine too. As long as whatever you're doing something that you want to get out of bed in the morning to do. People talk a lot about, small business isn't a job, it's a lifestyle. And if you're going to turn your lifestyle into something you hate doing, don't do it. I don't want people ringing me up saying, can you help me if they're not passionate about it?
Yeah, no, that's right. You won't want to put your feet on the ground if that is the case. Number 3.
Make sure that you make time to work on the business as well as in the business. We're really good at being in the business, aren't we?
Yeah, this is a cracker. This, if I paid someone $1 every time I said this, I would be completely broke for the rest of my life. You are just so right. People get so involved inside their business, they actually forget to work on them.
And I have a friend who I met during 2020, and she runs a small business. And I said to her, can we catch up to chat about something? And she said, yep, you can do it Thursday afternoon or Friday morning. Otherwise, I'm working in the business. Right. So it's not just a case of I must put aside 3 hours to do something this week. Thursday afternoon, Friday morning, that's her time to work on the business.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, it makes it so much easier. I suspect you also run some kind of online scheduling system like I do that, you can say, I'm available from A to B, whenever it is. Well, block some of that time out that says, no. On Tuesday afternoons and Thursday mornings, no, that's it. I'm doing things, the really dreary stuff sometimes, doing your tax, doing your invoicing. Yay, money comes in. Doing things like your marketing programs, doing things like talking to I'm saying the same thing over and over again. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's, basically making time to do that marketing. And I guess my biggest philosophy is marketing is everything. But if you don't have time to tell people how brilliant you are, then, or how much they need the product or the service that you have, then it's awfully hard to grow yourself a business. So we definitely, and as small business owners, and for a lot of people listening, they are solopreneurs. So it is hard to not work in the business. Work in the business, because if you're not working in it, that's it. It sort of stops. But like you say, scheduling that time, which is specifically for working on the business and looking at the goals and how to achieve them, 100%. I love that one. That is definitely a perler.
And there's another little sort of side one to that, if I can have a 3B, and that is a number of people listening to this are not only small business owners and therefore have to split their time between in and on. Many of them are also parents or partners of smaller people or people of their own generation. You also need to put time aside for that as well. Don't think, I'll do the work in the business between 9 and 5 when the shop is open, and then from 6 till 10 I'm working on the business. Don't forget, you've also got to put aside time for the things that are really important, not just your business.
Yeah, including yourself.
Yeah, that comes into it as well.
Bit of self-care for sure.
That's the one.
For sure.
Yep.
All right, 4.
Believe that you belong.
Oh, okay.
Now, I think I made this one up, but it sounds like one of those things you'd read on a wall somewhere. I have no recollection of ever reading this. I think I've made this one up. Believe that you belong. I think we are often seeing people's success stories. No one ever does a TV expose and says, unless they're really, really shonky and a current affair gets onto it, but no one ever goes, I'd like to introduce you to Jen. She runs a small business in regional Queensland, and within 3 months she was out of work. I mean, no one ever does that. It's only ever the people who, down to the last $20, they thought they'd go and they do, and suddenly they're running a multi-million-dollar enterprise. That's all we ever hear about. And sometimes you think, I could never do that.
Yeah.
I know you were being a little flippant when you started this conversation about WowPod. You said, I was surprised you could find any wisdom to share with me. The number of people who I've asked to be on WowPod who have said, but I've got no wisdom.
Yeah.
I heard an episode with that woman from, just near the Murray River up there in New South Wales, Jen somebody or other. She was brilliant. I could never be her, right? And there's this question of, what? You do belong. Don't believe you don't belong.
Yeah.
Better still believe that you do.
Yeah, and some of that comes to we are comparing ourselves to where people are now, not where they started. And I think that, really, what's the right word I'm looking for? I'm not really quite sure what the right word is, but that makes it hard, like comparisonitis, basically. You can't
Yes.
compare the person who spent their last $20 and now running a multi-billion-dollar company. You need to go back to where they were when they had their last $20 and work back from there. But
The
and I think
overnight sensation, 15 years in the making, that one.
that's exactly right. And I think social media is a little bit cruel that way, in that it is often only the highlights. We only normally see, the highlights of things and not necessarily the reality of things, which makes us perhaps feel like we don't belong.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that comes into this is a sort of a 4B is I'm not going to name drop. I'm just going to say I could name drop. I was talking to someone really well known the other day who is in the field of radio, and I was chatting to him about what I'm up to and the pivoting and all that kind of stuff. And his comment was, just keep swinging the racket, you'll hit one eventually. and I thought that's actually really good wisdom as well. I've just slipped in an extra one there, but it's a bit about that as well. Don't worry about the other people. You just keep swinging your racket and eventually you'll get onto one. And I think it's, rather than worrying about who you're not, worry about who you are. And I think that is where and you do belong. 2.1 million small businesses across Australia or something, isn't there? Which means that if they're ranked from 1 to 2.1 million, you're not sitting at number 2.1 million. You're somewhere in the middle there somewhere. So you do belong.
Yeah, and we do, as humans, have that need to belong. We are community-orientated people. I think that's where a lot of people have struggled in 2020 with lockdowns and things like that, is that we are very community-minded. But yeah, you just got to find your own community, and you definitely belong for sure. I think you've thrown in about 12 pearls of wisdom, but we will move on to number 4.
No, that was number 4.
Number 5, sorry.
Yeah, so number 5. Fortunately, we're getting close to the end. Experiments don't fail. They just give you results you weren't expecting. I studied physics about the same time as Newton was discovering gravity. It's a long, well, maybe a little bit more recent than that. But there was a guy on TV in the 1960s. So therefore, of course, Jen, you wouldn't have any concept of who I'm talking about. His name was Professor Julius Sumner Miller. He was an American physicist who, one of the things about physics is if you can do physics, clearly you are a genius. That's what everyone says. No. Physics is the most logical, easy to explain thing in the whole world. If you get past that whole, I can't do it, it's too hard, right? And Julius Sumner Miller was famous for an expression. He used to say, why is it so? He used to have that sort of really whiny kind of...
I thought that was the Cadbury guy.
Whose name was Professor Julius Sumner Miller. That's exactly who it was. The man who did the Cadbury chocolate ads. That's who it was. And he used to, and that's why Cadbury brought him back, because he had a really strong following in the 60s and early 70s. And he used to say, experiments never fail. They just give you results you weren't expecting. So the concept of failure says, I expected this thing to happen and this happened, so I didn't get it right. So if you think about your maths tests that we've all failed at some stage in our life, there was an expectation that you would get 100% of those questions correct. And if you only get 40% of them, you have failed. Well, actually, what you've probably uncovered is a learning issue, that you haven't quite picked up a concept. Or if I do something and it doesn't work out the way I thought it would, measured against some predetermined measure, I've failed. No, you haven't. You've just come up with something that's different. So don't think just because it didn't come out the way you thought it would, when you bought that thing, that this amazing idea that if I start a business that's going to do A, B, and C, and in fact it ends up doing D, E, and F, doesn't really matter. It just gives you different outcomes. And failure is not an option. I think someone once said in a movie somewhere.
No, that's right. Well, you don't fail, you just learn. But I think for me, that whole pearl of wisdom really relates back to the first one. So one of my philosophies is fail faster, because if you can fail faster, then you'll learn more, which of course, then you get to have the business that you want by failing even faster, which comes back to just have a crack.
Absolutely. And I spoke to someone on WowPod the other day, and they used that old Einsteinian piece of philosophy, which was something about if everybody was measured by, if everyone was measured by their ability to climb a tree, a fish would think it's stupid. It's that concept that says you're good at something. It's just not what necessarily everyone else expects you to be. So,
Yeah.
Have I given you enough?
I think so. I think
Number 3.
No, I think they're just we hear these things so often. We read quotes on social media or we hear them, and sometimes they just go in one ear and out the other. Because we've heard them so much. So putting a bit of context around them and perhaps just reinforcing a few messages, as we come into the new year or as we, start this new year, I think they're really great reminders.
I think so. And I think also you make a really good point. There's one that gets used so much, and that is insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? Yeah. Everyone says it, but no one actually thinks about it, right? People still get up in the morning, do exactly what they did yesterday. Try doing something different. Try rewriting it. Rewrite Einstein. Now, there's a challenge for you. Get a concept that Einstein's come out and try and rewrite it. I'm going to go with this. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Yeah. It's exactly the same message, but in a way where people go, actually, that makes more sense to me. So don't just buy the memes. Don't just buy the idle philosophy that people keep throwing up on social media. Stop, think, reword it, apply it to yourself.
Yeah. And if you are one of those people who perhaps is listening that do share those quotes on social media, if you put context around it on how it relates to you or your experience with that actual saying, it will get so much more traction, and it really comes into that human-to-human marketing, which I talk about all the time.
Yes, you do. So very well.
Beautiful. Neil, it's been a blast.
Always is when I'm chatting to you.
Second time round, full confession to all the listeners. We did this once before Christmas. Jenny didn't press the record button. And here we are again in January with the record button pressed. So yay me.
Having rehearsed it so brilliantly last time round, this time was an absolute no worries at all. It was always going to be good, wasn't it?
Yeah, terrific. Because, you and I need to do things the second time. But anyway.
Absolutely, because both very shy people, clearly, and hate a microphone. Yeah.
Clearly. Have you got any parting words of wisdom for us, Neil, that before we finish up today?
Everyone ran around saying 2020 was an unprecedented year and beat their chest and ran around being very sad about it. 2021, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be an even more unprecedented year. It's the first time ever in our lives where we have had a year where we are emerging from a pandemic. And that just equals massive opportunity. So rather than sitting around thinking about how quickly you can get back to where you were, forget should, start thinking could. Rather than saying what you should be doing in 2021, start thinking about what you could be doing in 2021.
Yeah, that's a perler. Well done.
Hey,
yeah, I love that.
And that's not even written down in front of me. That one I made up on the spot, that one.
I saw a little thing on social media the other day, and it was 2021, but the one was WON, as in we're winning. And I thought, nice. That is so good. 2021.
Yeah. Yes. And anyone the next person who puts up, 2020 hindsight. Yes, I think we've all heard that one now. We don't need to see that anymore. We've had that meme. Thank you.
We must hang around in different circles. I haven't seen that one, but
haven't you? Well, there you go. There's someone out there who hasn't heard it. Well,
yeah, the algorithm is serving it to you, which is a conversation for a whole different podcast talking about algorithms. Neil, it's been a blast. Thank you so much for coming on for take 2 of this. And if anyone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Head to untypical.com.au, and there's a whole stack of stuff going on there. So and that's where the contact stuff is. Happy to have a chat, and there's an opportunity you can put aside some time. We'll have a chat about whatever it is you want to have a chat about. Untypical.com.au.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Neil.
Thanks, Jen.
I hope you enjoyed that episode and got some gold from it. I enjoyed making it, so much so that I had to do it twice. Because like I said, the first time I forgot to press the record button because no one's perfect, right? Lucky Neil is a really patient gentleman. If you have any queries or questions, I'd really love for you to head into the Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group. If you haven't joined yet, then really go over and join. It's a fantastic little community of small business owners who are all kinds of vulnerable and are always sharing their knowledge and their journey to help others. So it's a great little group to join. But that's it for episode 109. I'll be back next Thursday for 1:10, and I look forward to chatting with you again then, otherwise in the Facebook group in the meantime. Just a reminder, my email marketing program the doors do close tomorrow, Friday 5th of February. If you're interested, go to bit.ly/email mastermind and join that. But otherwise, have a fabulous week. And if you're enjoying this podcast, I would really love for you to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And also maybe share this episode with another superstar business owner who's doing that daily grind, who would really appreciate some words of wisdom and making their business life a little bit simpler. A rating and review would be awesome if you have time to do that this week. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. But whatever you do, my small business peep, remember, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.